What are we discussing on today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast? Corbin Carroll leaves Sunday's game with injury. How concerned should we be? And most intriguing non-roster invites by the Dbacks this spring training.
You are Locked on Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. Listening to who? The always charismatic host of this podcast, Millard Thomas, multimedia journalist and graphic designer. So please go check out my website, MillardThomas24.myportfolio.com. On there you can see all my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. If you want to see more content by me, please follow me on Twitter at CreatorThomas24 for my personal account, or look up Locked on Diamondbacks on both Twitter and Instagram for the podcast handle. On today's show, we are discussing Corbin Carroll's injuries and who are the potential replacements if he has to miss some time. Dbacks rotation looking strong, breaking down who's in the lead for those 5 spots, and then non-roster invites that I'm really intrigued by this spring training. Thank you for making Locked on Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free. It's available on all platforms, so please continue to tell your friends. One of those platforms is YouTube. Please subscribe to Locked on Diamondbacks on YouTube. All right, let's get into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast now, and let's discuss Corbin Carroll, because he left Sunday's game with an injury. It looks like lower back tightness. Now, early reports from Steve Gilbert, indications are saying not serious. Really, he should miss the next game and take a day off on Monday and all that stuff. They're going to give him some rest, but doesn't sound like it's anything serious. Doesn't sound like the opening days in jeopardy for Corbin Carroll, anything like that. Like, if you're placing any prop bets on over-under totals for Corbin Carroll entering 2025, I would not worry. I still think you can place those bets. But I do want to discuss Corbin Carroll and the hot start he's had, and what would the potential replacements look like in the season if Corbin Carroll was to miss some time? Because as we've seen so far this spring training, Corbin Carroll looks like a totally different player. We've discussed the slight tweak in his batting stance. You look at the way he holds his bat, way more vertical than how it was last season. It seems to really help his bat path when he's swinging, way more inducive to that launch angle. It was a way more flatter swing before, and you could already tell with a little bit more of that verticality in his swing, provides so much more power and pop. And so far, Corbin Carroll leads his D-backs team with 3 home runs, and he was balling out prior to this injury. And so you hope the injury doesn't set him back in any way in terms of his production that he looks like he was getting set for once the regular season rolls around, because he's been on fire to start spring training, and you hope this doesn't slow down that momentum. But I did want to ask and kind of question, if Corbin Carroll was to miss time at any point this season, who are the best options to replace Carroll? How should the D-backs go about it? Because, of course, they have a whole bunch of different players on their roster, some with only outfield eligibility, some with defensive versatility. Some guys are young, some guys are old. So there's so many options that the D-backs currently have internally that could replace Corbin Carroll. Of course, we still have Randall Grichuk, and we could slide him from DH, play him a little bit more in the outfield if we really want to. Of course, a logical choice would be just to play Alek Thomas more in the outfield, right? We know he's a defensive wizard, and so the logical choice would be just to play Alek Thomas more in center field. You know what you're getting. He's going to be an elite defensive player, and he's not going to mess up or make mistakes in that kind of way. Offensively, still work in progress, and that's kind of where I would probably push back on Alek Thomas, because even though we know how good he is defensively, and we are still going to give him opportunities this year, because we still, if he can ever turn his bat around, if he can show us what he did in the 2024 postseason, with just a taste of what he can be on the major league level, because if we get that version of Alek Thomas over the course of a larger sample size, that's a real major league player. But as it currently stands, Thomas is all defense, no offense, and I would be more pro looking at some other options, because as it currently stands, if Thomas does not hit, I feel like I already know what I'm getting with him, right? elite defensive player with no offense. And that's cool. That kind of guy is valuable for short stints and stuff. But if I'm talking about who could help me out in like a variety of other different ways, maybe with their bat as well as their glove, I would like to look at some other options for the D-backs besides Alek Thomas, because I would say Thomas is first up among the Corbin Carroll replacements, but there's some other avenues you could explore if you're the D-backs. You have all these non-roster invites. Let's say a Corbin Carroll, for some reason the injury is more serious than we thought entering the regular season. There are some guys among the non-rosters that I think are even intriguing that you could keep, like a Garrett Hampson, who I would think would be pretty interesting as a guy who's already played in the NL West, a speedster. He's already been around the block playing for the Rockies and seeing the Dodgers and the Padres and Giants. I think he would have been a very, very intriguing guy to put in the outfield if we really needed to, if we want to see someone who's already been on the major league level in the NL West before. I think some other intriguing options among the non-roster invites is someone like AJ Vujacic, who I want to talk about a little bit later, a youngster with some pop and some power. I think he would be pretty intriguing. There's still guys like Jordan Lawler. Like if the D-backs really want to, like we know someone like Vargas might be in the lead for that Kevin Newman role, but if you really want to, you could take someone like Jordan Lawler and also keep him on the roster. Like I said, you could put Randall Grichuk in that outfield spot and then maybe make Jordan Lawler your DH if you really want to, if you just want to see what he looked like with his bat. Don't think the D-backs would do that, but with the Corbin Carroll injury, it does open up some flexibility on your roster, at least to look at some other guys. Personally, I would probably go with one of those intriguing young guys that are not Alek Thomas, because even though I know what Alek Thomas is, if you're asking me, ideally what I would want to see that would be like most fun and that I could like talk myself into down the line working out for the D-backs. Yes, Alek Thomas, if his bat ever comes around, that's a real player, but someone like Jorge Barosa, I still want to see what he looks like on the major league level with a little bit of more opportunity and a sample size. Still haven't really seen him play at all for the D-backs. He has such a small cup of coffee last year with Arizona. Like, it really didn't matter. Only had 17 at bats. Like, I really don't know how good he is. Someone too like Tim Tawa, who can play infield, outfield. Like, he is a guy that is coming off a really strong season in the minor leagues. Like, I think he would also be a really fun, intriguing piece to throw out there for the D-backs. 31 home runs last year, 868 OPS in the minor leagues, and he could play center, second base, third base. Like, someone like that, I also think is really fun and really intriguing as a Corbin Carroll replacement. And so, yes, the D-backs are probably, if Corbin Carroll missed time this upcoming season, Alek Thomas would be the logical choice. But I wouldn't mind a guy like Garrett Hampson, who's been around the NL West. I wouldn't mind one of these young D-back outfielders in the Vujacic, the Barros, the Tim Tawa. I think all those guys are intriguing. The D-backs want to keep an extra utility infielder like a Jordan Lawler. I wouldn't have a problem with that either. I would want to see the D-backs get a little bit experimental if Corbin Carroll missed some time with one of these other young players. Yes, we would probably go Alek Thomas route because of his defensive ability and the fact he was still a pedigree prospect, but I would be okay if the D-backs took a look at some of their other internal options if Corbin Carroll was to miss some time. Now we'll discuss how strong the rotation looks entering 2025 in segment number 2.
From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. FanDuel is the app that is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly, no waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. My favorite thing to do on FanDuel is the same game parlay. Whenever the Suns are playing, give me KD over on 25 points, give me Booker over on 25, and give me the Suns money line. When it hits, which is not very often, it brings a big smile to my face. If you want a big smile on your face, just visit fanduel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's fanduel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Back here on the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, and now let's discuss the D-backs rotation this spring and the battle for those rotation spots and how strong the D-backs rotation currently looks, because I think that's the first point I want to make. This D-backs rotation looks good, and it is the strength of this D-backs team currently. Yes, Arizona led the league in pretty much every offensive category last season, but next season, 2025, is going to be all about the D-backs pitching staff, more specifically their rotation. Fangraphs, Dan Zabrowski is already projecting the D-backs that have the best pitching staff according to ERA Plus in 2025, even better than teams like the LA Dodgers. And you can see why. This spring training, the D-backs rotation has already been pretty dominant. Corbin Burnes has already made a couple starts. He's been elite, 6 strikeouts, no earned runs. Zach Gallen, he could be a little bit better, but still 5 strikeouts to 1 earned run in 3 innings pitched. He's still fantastic. I still feel great about the top of my rotation. Corbin Burnes, Zach Gallen as your 1-2 punch is one of the best in baseball. And then we finally got to see the debut of Merrill Kelly. He also looked really good in his debut. And so far, the top of this D-backs rotation, the front 3, I feel so good about it. That is a World Series contending top 3 in their rotation. I will put it against anybody's top 3. And yes, other teams, in terms of like the star power on paper, you might even put above the D-backs like the Dodgers. But if you take actual production, and it all comes down to the fact that Merrill Kelly is still the most underrated pitcher in baseball, I would take Merrill Kelly up against almost any number 3 starter in another rotation, because Merrill Kelly is that good and he's still underrated. And so far, the top of the rotation looks absolutely fantastic this spring training. Makes me not worried at all once we come to opening day. But we knew that was the top 3. It's really been the back end of the rotation, right? Who's going to be the number 4, number 5 starters? People have penciled in Erod as the number 4 starter, but I've always pushed back against that because you still have Fott, Ryan Nelson, Monty. Yes, Erod has the contract and the money, but I didn't want to just pencil him into a rotation spot. But maybe we should, because he did debut this past weekend and he looks solid himself out there. Erod, 2 innings pitch and a strikeout, and he is someone that needs to have a major bounce back season, because if there was no Jordan Montgomery on this D-backs roster, Erod would be the guy that we would be most disappointed in. Erod would be the guy that we would look at as the biggest bust since Madison Bumgarner in terms of free agents the D-backs have signed, because he is coming off an atrocious season that we probably do not discuss enough because of Jordan Montgomery's shadow and him casting his shadow casting a bigger net than Erod's in terms of their tumultuous seasons last year, because Erod was just as bad. I mean, in 10 starts, 50 innings pitched, he had a 5.04 ERA. He had 10 hits per 9 innings, a 1.5 whip. Like, it was a bad year for Erod, and he's someone that's still owed a ton of money going forward. $20 million in 2025, 21 in 2026, 19 in 2027, and then an option for 17 in 2028. This is a guy that needs to start looking better for the D-backs, because right now that contract looks terrible. And as I've said on this pod, I would actually much rather trade Erod than Jordan Montgomery. And if you could trade both of them, that would make me the happiest, and then just put Fott and Ryan Nelson in the rotation. But as it currently stands, Erod looked good. He looks like he's on track to potentially get himself one of those rotation spots. And as he probably will, because like we just said, he is owed a lot of money and a lot of years left on his contract. So it's fine if you want to pencil him into the rotation. And it's okay if you do, because he at least looked very good in his debut, and it was an encouraging sign. And of course, we know that number 5 starter right now looks like it's going to be between Fott, Ryan Nelson, and Monty. I think out of respect, it should go for Fott, the number 3 starter in your World Series rotation, someone that was your best starter in the first half of 2024, and now someone that continues to look really good in spring training, couple innings pitched, no earned runs. We all love Brandon Fott, and it feels like he is on the precipice of a breakout season if the D-backs give him some rope, if the D-backs give him the opportunity. But it's like they keep saying, it's going to be about winning over development. If they feel like it's smarter to go Monty or Fott, that's what they will do. If they feel like it's smarter to start Fott in AAA, that's what they will do. But I think Fott has earned himself a spot in the rotation through his play, through his work ethic. I would love to give Fott the opportunity, but it's not going to be easy as we have this log jam of pitchers. And even a guy like Ryan Nelson, who also debuted this past weekend, he also looked fantastic. 2 innings, no earned runs. And that's kind of the theme with everyone. And it has to make you question, like, is Jordan Montgomery going to like play himself out of a rotation spot just due to the fact that he's not healthy right now? Supposed to face some live batters this upcoming week, I think Tuesday, but still, when you look at the rotation and it's like Burns has already made a couple starts, Zach Gallen has, Kelly, Ryan Nelson, Erod all debuted this past weekend and all look fantastic. If you're Monty, the first outing you have out there, if it doesn't look good, if you don't go 2 scoreless clean innings, then it's like you're immediately number 6 in the power ranking for the rotation, especially coming off the season you just had where you were absolutely horrendous last year. It felt like anytime you started, we had to have like a Bryce Jarvis or one of our long relievers, like a Blake Walston, just ready and waiting because it could get out of control after like the first or second inning. 6.23 ERA and 117 innings pitched last season. Like, absolutely horrible. And so if you're Monty, you come into spring training this year, yes, you're lighter, but such a lackadaisical attitude at times where he said, they pay me a lot of money, so I expect to be in the rotation. You should not expect that at all when there's currently 6 guys pitching better than you currently and they're healthy. Monty might just play himself out of a rotation spot due to his health and due to some of the comments he's made because he does not feel like he's taking this job seriously enough. I need to see more competitive juice, more competitive fire from Monty. D-backs continue to say, this is a competition, and there will only be 5 guys in the rotation, and there's currently 7. But for some reason, Monty, who was by far the worst starter in the bunch last season, who everyone discussed him being out of shape, comes into camp this year and still has an attitude where he's like, the job is already mine. I absolutely hate it. And we'll see what happens to the rotation. I feel very good about 6 members right now if we want to go with a 6-man rotation. But the 7th guy, D-backs need to figure out what they are going to do with Jordan Montgomery. Now I want to discuss the most intriguing non-roster invites in segment number 3.
Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1-ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. My favorite Wonderful Pistachios I actually have right here. Sorry to the audio listeners only. You're going to have to go to YouTube for this one because right next to me, I got 3 of my favorite flavors here. And this is what is great about Wonderful Pistachios. Unsalted right here, no shell. Chili roasted, no shell. And then this one is roasted and salted with the shell. The great thing about Wonderful Pistachios is the variety. You could get salted, unsalted, with shell, no shell. Get a little kick to it if you wanted to. No matter what flavor you want, they have a variety and a profile that fits just for you. So please go get yourself some Wonderful Pistachios. Get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more.
Welcome back to the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, and let's discuss most intriguing non-roster invites because there's a few guys who have been invited to the D-backs this spring training who I do think can make an impact if they were given the opportunity to play opening day or play at some point this season for the D-backs, if they brought them back at some point. I do think there are 5 players who could make an impact who are intriguing. Some of these guys are still D-backs minor leaguers. They'll start the season back in AAA. But some of these guys, if they don't make the roster, they will probably be hitting the waiver wire. The first guy that I want to discuss is someone that we discussed earlier, little AJ. I always think I say his last name wrong. Vukovic. He is someone that has been turning heads at spring training, has been playing really good baseball at the plate for Arizona. And it's not just offensively, because we know that's been his strong point. Currently, through the first 7 games, he was batting 300, 1064 OPS, of course, super small sample size, a home run as well. But this is someone that really performed well in the minor leagues last year on the AA level in 121 games in AA last year, 17 bombs, 800 OPS, really strong season 2023. And this is just someone that is big, 6'4", 210 pounds, can play in the infield, has been converted to an outfielder the last couple of years, has been improved defensively, and has massive pop in his bat. At 23 going 24 years old, this could be the perfect opportunity for him, especially as one of those guys where, let's say, a Corbin Carroll or someone on the D-backs roster in the outfield missed some time with injury. I would look at AJ as an intriguing player to play with a little bit of pop, with that defensive versatility, and the fact that he's a big boy too. I would give him a small opportunity. I would like to see AJ on the major league level at some point this season. He's one of those guys where I don't want him getting stuck in the minor leagues where we never get to see him, because there are guys like that who put up good numbers year after year in the minor leagues, but there's something about their game where scouts don't trust them and then they just waste away in the minors. I don't want AJ to be that. I know the D-backs are loaded in the outfield, but this is someone that has performed pretty well offensively the last couple of years and continues to improve, continues to develop, and is turning heads this spring training with his defensive plays and some of his offensive plays as well. I would give AJ Vukovic a real look, if there was an injury at some point this season. Next guy is a pitcher for the D-backs, 24-year-old Kyle Ament. Just did an article with Fangraphs, and he is a very interesting prospect because of his delivery. Has one of those over-the-top trim bucket delivery styles, kind of like a Josh Coleman-esque type. Like, you go look at the way he delivers a pitch. It's a little bit unorthodox, but the way he delivers it makes his pitches super deceptive, and he's not a guy that throws super hard. That's the thing. He's in that range of like 88 to 92 miles per hour where he doesn't throw super hard, really needs to be elite with his secondary stuff, his command. And so far, when we look at his minor league numbers, the command could be better. He has a high walk rate, but the strikeout numbers are insane for this guy. 12.7 strikeouts per 9 in the fall league this past year. You look at minor leagues last season, 15.3 strikeouts per 9 with a 2.86 ERA between high A, double A, and triple A last year. Like, this is a strikeout monster. And yes, he might not be a guy that's like perfect for the back end of your bullpen in terms of if you need a high velocity, high leverage reliever that could go out there and throw 98. He might not be that guy, but a guy that can still ratchet up the strikeouts via a slow fastball and then some really, but not just slow fastball, it's a really deceptive fastball. That's some cut action, that's some rise action. Like, that's the thing about it. It's not a slow fastball. It's a slow fastball with some movement behind it. And so I do think Kyle Ament, with the way he's pitched so far on the minor league level, he could make an impact some point with the D-backs this year if they want to give him an opportunity. Fangraphs likes this guy a lot, which makes me think he can be a pretty good major leaguer, especially with the strikeout numbers he's put up. Like, again, just even if you take his college career as well, he's 16 strikeouts per 9 innings, like absolutely insane. So I do think Kyle could have a cup of coffee with the D-backs at some point this season. I also think a guy like Gino Groover is super interesting as a guy who has a really strong bat. He is an offense-first player who has been improving his defense. You look at his numbers in the minor leagues the last couple of years, he's absolutely crushed. Last season in double A and high A, he had an 841 OPS. He has crushed his whole time going back to college. So far in the minor leagues, he's been a bat first person. The thing about Geno has always been his defense. If he can improve that, he can be a major league player. And we've seen him make strides over the last couple of years in that area. Now he's in spring training and he's getting able to show off his offensive tools and show how good of an offensive player he is. Geno is someone that can play all over the field, can play all over the infield defensively, and with his offensive ability, Geno, I think, is a guy that has future major leaguer written all over him. Now, do I think he's a star player? I don't know, but I do think this is someone that will get an opportunity to play because of how good his offensive profile is, how compact his swing and his contact ability is. Like everyone says, he's a really good offensive player that you can trust that ability to convert on the major league level. It's more about his defense. So Geno Groover, if he can get his defense up to par, I do think he's a really intriguing player. And the final guy I want to discuss is Jose Castillo, who is someone that can throw super hard. You look at his StatCast numbers, around 95, 96 miles per hour, had a really good rookie season with the Padres. The issue is that rookie season was back in 2018, and he really hasn't pitched at all. He's pitched 2 innings since 2018. A lot of it due to injury and different reasons, but the fact is he's still someone that has really incredible stuff. The minor league numbers are still fine, and you look at the pitching arsenal, like it's good. He has the kind of stuff that makes you think he could be a high velocity, mid leverage reliever if he could put it all together and stay healthy. We've seen him be good on the major league level before, even though it was a long time ago. So Jose Castillo, if he can put it together for the Dbacks with the kind of pitching arsenal he has as someone that could throw 95, 96 with a slider mix off of it, he is someone that really intrigues me as a potential reliever down the line for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Now, that's it for this edition of the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast. Come back tomorrow for more Diamondbacks news, coverage, and insight. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. Deuces.